Hi everyone, it's Will Frampton here in Boston. I hope you're doing well and staying safe wherever you are. This is Frontline Perspectives, a collaboration among reporters and storytellers around the world. We believe it's a good way to process this COVID-19 crisis and sort of talk our way through it. How are we all dealing with it? The way we talk with our friends and family, that's what you're going to get here. We might mention some numbers or stats, but we're always going to try and rise above that to look at the bigger picture. And of course, this is a worldwide crisis, and so we're going to visit different regions of the world to see how they're dealing with it. And finally, there is good news out there. We must seek it, we will, and we'll bring it to you. And with that, let's meet our team of reporters and storytellers around the world. As always, we have Cristina Mendonca in Sacramento, California. This week joining us is Cristi Jessee in Las Vegas, Nevada, and all the way over in New Zealand, Pallas Hupe. Ladies, thank you very much for being here. We're going to get to all of you here in a moment. Cristina, we'll start with you on the West Coast. You've had your finger on the pulse of what's happening with this COVID-19 crisis. What are you seeing new this week out there?
Well, hello from California, where the infection rate is still rising, but the state has flattened the curve significantly. And we were the very first state in the nation to institute a stay-at-home order, which is one reason experts believe we've been able to flatten the curve as we have. However, there is a new study that is coming out of Stanford University that has an additional clue on that, and I'll have that coming up. We'll also talk as well about the largest county in California instituting a mandatory mask order. That's happening down in Los Angeles. And two of the largest tech companies in the world, both based in California, are developing new proximity apps. So we'll have more on that. But first, let's go around the world all the way to the other hemisphere. Pallas Hupe is standing by in Alexandra, New Zealand.
That's right, Christina. I'm coming to you from Central Otago, a region right in the middle of the South Island here in New Zealand. I've lived here for the better part of a year and in New Zealand for the better part of a decade. I moved here obviously from Northern California in 2011 and left behind my job as a news anchor at CBS 13 in Sacramento. Here, it's been fascinating to watch what's been happening around the world, and I have to say there's a distinct feeling here of being lucky not just to live here, but lucky to be locked down, frankly, and lucky for our leadership. I look forward to sharing a little bit more about that in a moment, but first we have Cristi Jessee standing by in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thanks, Pallas. Yes, I'm Cristi Jessee, and I'm a realtor at Keller Williams Southern Nevada here in Las Vegas, Nevada. The governor has deemed real estate an essential business here in Nevada, but it's certainly not business as usual. And I've been watching the market closely, and I'll have more on how this shutdown has been affecting the real estate market right here in Las Vegas.
Cristi, thank you very much. And of course, Pallas and Cristina, we'll go back to you in just a moment. But first, a quick update from here in Boston, where people are trying to get outside and enjoy finally some nice weather here. We've had a lot of wind and cold and rain here in the early days of spring. The governor and local leaders are hoping that people will, of course, keep their distancing in place. Let's take a look at some local parks around here. And we've heard of a lot of parks around the country trying to slow down the rate of visitors coming in. What they're doing here is they're not opening parking lots in many cases. You're looking at the town of Hingham, Massachusetts, just south of Boston. As for the surge, as we've heard across the country and across the world, where is the surge happening, the surge in patients, the surge in infections? Local officials believe the surge is happening here right now in this 10-day period, so we're keeping a close eye on that. But I do want to get back to Cristina in Sacramento, and of course, as we referenced, and as many people know, California, the West Coast, sort of the first wave of all of these infections in the United States. So Cristina, get us up to speed on what's happened in the last week or so out there.
Well, as of Friday, everyone in LA County is now required to mask up whenever they leave the house. This includes all essential workers, everyone out for a routine grocery shop. This is the level of infections in that part of the state are still, they're still quite a bit high, right? So part of that has to do with the elderly care homes. There have been 121 elderly care homes in Southern California where the infection has gotten out of control. And in those homes, the death rate has risen well above 50%. So also in Southern California, there's a Navy ship off the coast, and it is now taking on healthy elderly people to get some of them out of those high-risk nursing homes. No mask requirement for the rest of the state that's going on right now. You see some people wearing them, like we've been downtown here in Sacramento near the state capitol, and we've seen a few people go by with masks on, but for the most part, people are just keeping their social distance but getting out and about in the sunshine. Google and Apple announced this week they're developing new proximity apps. They say will be available soon for download. And these would use location data. You could download the app and it will tell you if someone near you or someone you come in contact with has tested positive for the virus. Obviously, huge privacy issue. It's a bit controversial, but this would be an opt-in system. Now, many people are thinking this week about their personal economics, right? We've had so many people apply for unemployment in the country. No different here in California. People have had a lot of frustration trying to get through the unemployment lines to talk to someone. The governor says that for the next 3 or 4 weeks, people who apply for unemployment and get unemployment in California will get an additional $600 per week. And finally, that interesting new study out of Stanford as well. There is a hypothesis that one of the reasons why California's numbers have flattened so quickly is that the virus may have been in California as early as last fall. They've tested 3,500 people. They've collected blood samples. They're looking for antibodies for COVID-19, and the results of those tests should be back in 2 or 3 weeks. If they see a high number of people with antibodies, it could indicate that the virus was here well before the lockdown order went into effect. California does have the highest visitations by Chinese nationals and the highest number of Chinese immigrants to our state versus anywhere else in the country. So that's the update for this week here in California. Will, let's go back to you.
Christina, fascinating developments, especially on the possibility that we may have had this with us, especially on the West Coast, for quite a long time now. That'll be good to follow up on in the coming weeks for sure. Now, just go a couple hundred miles to the south and east of you, Christina, to Cristi Jessee in Las Vegas. Cristi, you work in an industry that is so essential to the backbone of the American economy, and Las Vegas, as we recall from 10 or 12 years ago, was a canary in the coal mine for the housing market, what was happening with it when it collapsed. So along those lines, I want to know what you're seeing out there in terms of how is the housing market reacting to all this?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things to unpack here. I think, the first thing that a lot of people are talking about is this going to be another 2008? Is the bottom going to fall out of the market? And from everything I'm seeing, the answer to that is no. As I mentioned earlier, the governor has deemed real estate an essential business in Nevada. I think he knows, Governor Sisolak knows how important that industry is to Nevadans. And we entered this year in a very hot seller's market. We were down about 25% in inventory from the year before. The buyers were out buying. The sales were up over last year. And interest rates have been so low that, the market was really, really hot. And then when the shutdown happened, it kind of just put a paralysis on everything all at once. Before all of this happened, before the shutdown, we were opening 80 to 90 new escrows a day in the Las Vegas area. And now we're opening more of 30 to 45. So yes, we've seen the sales soften, but here's the good news. Houses are still selling and real estate transactions are still happening. And if a house is priced correctly, it's still selling within a week or two. So for all of those reasons, I don't anticipate any sort of huge crash. I feel that we're going to have a very strong third and fourth quarter this year once we start to get back to normal. And of course, I think there will be some effects as we've had the strip is shut down. A lot of our non-essential workers work in hospitality and they're all furloughed and there's uncertainty there. But for the most part, the market's moving forward in Las Vegas and the transactions are still happening.
Cristi, that seems like it's overall good news, and thank you for filling us in on that. Finally, let's head back around the world and one hemisphere to the south, where it's now, I guess it's fall, isn't it, Pallas? Officially where you are, it's fall. Is that right?
That's right, it is fall here, or autumn as we say, and hopefully you can see some of the gorgeous colors around us. Now, New Zealand has been making headlines around the world for its response to this. I don't know if you saw the Washington Post headline that said we're not just flattening the curve, but we are squashing it. And there are reasons for this. One is the Prime Minister, she is emphasizing is that we are going to pay right now economically, make a sacrifice economically right now, but save lives later. And through it all, she's talked about the importance of being kind to one another. So so far it's working. People are abiding by the advice. We are remaining within our bubbles, within our homes. We are only going out to exercise or to the grocery store or for essential services like pharmacies and doctors. Unlike other countries, we don't have restaurants that are open or takeaways or cafes, so there's a lot of cooking going on. But generally, as I said, people have been supportive of this. The approach is working and the numbers show it. We have a few more than 1,300 cases here right now, 4 deaths reported, and hospitalizations in the low to mid double digits only. There have been a few community clusters, but it hasn't been widespread, the transmissions. We are looking at maybe a year of having our borders closed, and there has been some pushback in the business community and even the coalition government against that. But it's really too soon to tell what's going to happen. I think we're all wondering what's next in terms of vaccines and how quickly we can get back to business. So for everybody, even down here, we just say watch this space.
Pallas, fascinating information from your side of the world. Now, of course, what we're trying to do in all this is seek the good news. We all need that these days in light of all the numbers and the stats and the information that we're seeing every day. We must seek what's good happening around us, and there is good news out there. I'll start it off with, on a personal note, a couple of things. Right here in my own neighborhood, for example, this picture, a sunset a few days ago. I asked one of my neighbors, hey, do you mind if I watch the sunset from your lawn? Not only did they invite me to come watch the sunset from their lawn, they brought out this Adirondack chair and asked me to stay and socially distance properly and enjoy a couple of drinks, which we did. We were never closer than 10 or 12 feet, but it turned into a wonderful evening. And I think that's an example of the neighborliness and the humanity that is out there, and I think it's shining through all this. We have neighbors getting to know each other like they never have before. And one more thing on another personal note, I have to brag, but there's a bigger picture here as well. My daughter, Rebecca Frampton, is 5.5 years old and learned how to ride a bike by herself for the first time this week. Here's some video of that happening right here. And it's not just my daughter. I want to point out that this is happening in neighborhoods all across America and the world to the extent people can get out. This is happening every day. So in light of all the news that we're getting hit with, all the hard news, life goes on. There's life happening all around us, and I believe we must remember that and focus on the good things that are happening all around us. And with that, Christina, I'll go to you. Let's hear your good news for the week.
Well, I do think you're absolutely right, and that families are spending a lot more time with each other. Just on a personal note, both of our daughters they're adults and they had moved out. They're both now riding out the pandemic with us, and having them both under the same roof again after a few years has been wonderful personally, and sitting down to dinner together every night. You do continue to see that neighborliness that we talked about last week. People are making 2 loaves of bread and dropping one off with a neighbor. People are much more quick to say hello as they pass each other on a walking trail, of course keeping their social distance, but there is a friendliness and there is an understanding that all of us are going through this together right now. Having that support, even if it's a phone call or a face-to-face chat virtually, it really is a lifeline for a lot of people who are maybe riding this out alone. Will?
Wonderful, Christina. And Cristi, you have good news too there in Las Vegas. Let's hear it.
Yes. My good news is that, my business is booming. I just helped a family move here from Minnesota in the middle of all of this, and they were able to close on their house and get into their house, and they're getting settled, and they're opening a new business, Chick-fil-A on the South Las Vegas Boulevard, and now they want to invest in some investment properties here in Las Vegas. So business is still happening. And just also on a personal note, I work at a brokerage, Keller Williams, Southern Nevada, and this has enabled us to become much closer through Zoom calls. We do a Zoom happy hour every Friday afternoon. I think it's really helped us to grow closer as a brokerage, and just those connections with the people we work with have become stronger. So that's what I'm seeing in my business and in my personal life. And there are silver linings to all of this.
Cristi, I think what you just said is what a lot of people are doing, again, around the country and around the world. Pallas, let's end it with you. What are you seeing that's surprised you in a good way the last week or so?
It's so interesting to hear other people's responses to this. We too are empty nesters, and we have one son who's in Connecticut, locked down with the family there. His university in upstate New York is obviously closed for the rest of the semester. Our other son goes to university here, and he chose to come home, so there are the three of us plus the little dog, and so we feel grateful, and that's helping keep us positive. But that's one thing I wanted to bring up. There has been such a proactive approach to preserving our mental health here in New Zealand. In fact, a friend of mine said that a community member or neighborhood member came out and asked to his face, how is your mental health? So the taboo has been lifted. There's been a very positive focus on that. Also, what's helping again is our Prime Minister, who's been very comfortable and relaxed doing Facebook Lives from her own living room. There is quite a sense of community spirit here. It's a country of less than 5 million, and so that's easy, because you know people in different communities around the country, but there's also a sense of shared values.
Wonderful. Pallas in New Zealand, Christina in Sacramento, and Cristi in Las Vegas. Wonderful talking to all of you and hearing from you. So with that, we'll bid adieu for another week, and we will see you next time here on Frontline Perspectives. Again, thanks to our guests around the world. We'll see you next time.